Welcome to the Happy Disruptors Podcast. If you're a creative thinker with an unconventional approach to your industry, you just might be a happy disruptor. Join your friends at the Great Outdoors Foundation for honest conversations about tackling critical issues like conservation with an uncritical disposition. If you like to smile and get things done, this is the podcast for you.
Hello, and welcome back to the Happy Disruptors Podcast. I'm Kaitie.
And I'm Hannah.
And today we are joined by Stephanie Oppel, Executive Director of Icon Water Trails, and a dear colleague of ours. Stephanie, we're so glad to have you here.
I'm so glad to be here. Thank you.
So tell us a little bit about yourself and your role with Icon.
Sure. So serving as the Executive Director of Icon, just hit the 2-year mark, which is really exciting for me, getting to work with this team and with all the folks from the Great Outdoors Foundation. So have loved that. I'm an Iowan, grew up here, born and raised in Ankeny. I live in Norwalk now. So just, all around the metro. Have always had a great love of big, complex projects with lots of stakeholders. That really energizes me and gets me going. So Icon fits the bill on that one. Yeah. And love the outdoors, outdoor enthusiast, and really enjoy getting out with my husband and my kids and family. So this has been really an ideal opportunity for me. Really happy.
Absolutely. Well, we have referenced and talked about Icon in a number of different formats here on the podcast in relation to some of our other work at the Great Outdoors Foundation, but I really want to do a deep dive today. Great. So walk us through Icon Water Trails from inception, when it started off as just an idea, a twinkle in someone's eye, to where it is today.
Yeah, and Hannah, I'm going to tag you in on some of this
for
too.
sure.
Since 2 years, a decade worth of work on this. But yeah, so Icon, just kind of on a very basic level, is a regional collaboration devoted to improving access to outdoor recreation, being used as a catalyst for conservation, economic development, workforce attraction and retention, tourism, just everything packaged together that's really continuing to make Des Moines and Central Iowa an incredible place to live and to visit. There have been conversations about how we reconnect people with the rivers for decades, right? Ever since we probably put up the dams and kind of turned away from the rivers decades and decades ago. But it really started in earnest around a decade ago with folks coming together and saying, now is the time. We really need a big, bold vision for how we can activate the water trails, how we can improve water quality, and looking at what it would take to do that together. Hannah, you were at the table in those meetings weekly with so many great partners. So maybe you want to take it over to you.
Well, I think that the concept had been around for maybe 3 decades. McLaughlin, who is the designer of the Whitewater Park, had been out in like the early 90s to look at what was feasible and possible. And activating those 2 rivers was really something that was a long-term dream of the community. In 2017, the Des Moines Area Metropolitan Planning Organization put together an engineering study, did a ton of outreach to environmental groups, neighborhood groups, different types of organizations to figure out what was feasible and popular, and really what could it look like. And that came out in 2017. And so then at that point, we're like, okay, great plan. Now how are we going to do it?
Right.
And we had some great leadership early on with Rick Tollickson from Oppel, the Community Foundation, the Des Moines Partnership, Polk County, Catch Des Moines. And it really was a community effort to move this forward. Capitol Crossroads was the convening of it, which was a great role for them to play. And we incubated it under the Great Outdoors Foundation to just really get it started, knowing that it wouldn't necessarily live there forever, but it provided a really efficient way to grow the organization as we built it up. Because remember, when we started, There was no governance. There was no name. There was no, and there really wasn't any regional outdoor rec group at that point.
Yeah.
And so we had to put all that together, and it really was a community effort. Dan Houston came on board, Catherine Kunert, a lot of really great business leaders to help make it happen and make it possible. And so it's evolved. I think when you look at what we've done so far, and especially under Stephanie's leadership, we've raised way north of $100 million. We have a governance structure. We have a great brand. We have operations already happening. And to think that it was nothing, until probably 2018, 19. And Icon went on its own in 2021.
2021, yeah. So formed as a 501c3 in 2021. Next summer will be our 5th anniversary, which is pretty exciting.
crazy.
I know, isn't that wild?
That's a huge milestone for nonprofits.
Yeah.
Getting over that 5-year mark is, significant.
And what I love too, is you were naming those organizations, Hannah, and those folks who were involved at the very early stages. Those people have walked alongside us in this work to this day, right? The Icon board met yesterday, still digging in, tackling those tough issues to help move us forward. But not only did these people kind of help us get it started, but they continue to walk alongside us because they are, the champions for this work. And it truly is a community collaborative effort to make this happen. It's kind of an example of what is so great about Central Iowa in general.
Yeah, absolutely. And so just on the nitty gritty side, because I think this is so impressive, and I think from a 30,000 foot view, the incubation of Icon Water Trails under the Great Outdoors Foundation can be a model for other entities and just kind of a different way of looking at wraparound services for nonprofits. So as Hannah mentioned, Icon was incubated under the Great Outdoors Foundation, and I believe Maggie McClellan, the original project manager, started in 2020.
Yes.
Such a fun time.
Right.
She actually started, I think she started February 2020.
Yes. And she oversaw the project for, I think, 2 years. And along that time, about that time is when Cole Miller was hired to oversee regional components, followed shortly by Monica Converse, who oversees the downtown projects, and then Stephanie. And then since then, Anna McDonald, who is behind camera today, and Ryan Keenan, who is now overseeing fundraising. So in a less than 5-year time span, went from one person to now a robust team. I mean, do you guys want to talk about a little bit about that model of staffing and development? I'm kind of going off script, but I think this is really fascinating.
I think it's really fascinating too. And I think it is, like you said, Kaitie, it's a model and it's a best practice for how we do this work. It's just, again, a testament. You don't need to start something from scratch and do it on your own. Being able to incubate it under an organization that not only had the knowledge and skills and network, but all of that, Great Outdoors Foundation's been around 30 years now, right? You're celebrating 30 years this year.
Yeah.
And so had tried and true practices, had community support, knew how to run the payroll and make sure all the bills are paid, right? And so those things can be really burdensome, I think, on a brand new nonprofit that get a little bit in the way of being able to drive mission forward and focus on that outcome and serving folks that you're trying to serve. So I guess I would just say that I really think that we should see more of this, bringing together of resources. You also have then, the buying power around health insurance or whatever it is when you bring more folks together. So I just think it's incredibly valuable.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned that the Great Outdoors Foundation is 30 years old, but we really were volunteer-led for the first 20. And so when I was hired, we had a great accounting partner. But we really had to start from scratch. Like I was on contract for my first 3 years, and we had, one lucky advantage that really at that point, the majority of the services that we were offering as a nonprofit were fundraising, right? And so that allowed us to build the resources that we need on the back end. But our whole mission is based on collaboration with those that are actually serving the mission, right? We're just helping eliminate barriers. We're helping to capitalize and move forward great programs.
Yeah.
And so our mission, we were kind of set up in that way, but I had a lot more flexibility to work on developing that back end. But as I was working with our partners, when you have a small nonprofit, they have two things, right? They need to hire staff, and usually you start with one person, and you start with someone that's really talented at mission delivery. And the mission delivery should be the majority of what that person is doing. But you have to run the business, right?
Yeah.
You have to do the audits. You have to do the financials. You have to answer all those nitty gritty details about HR and work employment law and contracts and all of that stuff. And it's impossible to ask a small nonprofit to do that on their own and deliver great mission-centric work. And so we saw our partners struggling, especially as we've seen over the last couple decades privatization of more and more government resources, which gives nonprofits an outsized role in the process, which also demands increased sophistication. But also since COVID, just the increased reliance on nonprofits in all industry. And so we feel we don't have it 100% right, but I think working with ICON and others, but especially ICON, has allowed us to figure out that model in a better way, that we're hoping that that's a main service, because we really need our strong nonprofits to be concentrating on mission delivery. They don't need to worry about AI policies in the workplace.
Yes. Well, and I think that is why, as each organization is growing and developing, I mean, there's such a strong connection between the Great Outdoors Foundation and Icon Water Trails. And so, if you have encountered one or both of our organizations just out in the general public, it's hard to encapsulate this entire conversation in a bite-sized piece. So I think it's important to talk through that evolution and also think about what it means and what it could mean for other nonprofits.
Yeah, I think it's hard to capture all of that. It's also, I think people get confused as to, are we one organization? Are we two? Yeah. What does that relationship look like? Yeah. Is it the same? I think that is something I'm really excited about too, is seeing us grow individually as we continue to have a really incredibly strong partnership, and knowing that we can do a lot of this work better together. So yeah, it's very nuanced, isn't it? Yeah. And it's very complex. So I'm glad that we're talking about it today.
Yeah, me too.
So can you explain for those viewers, what the difference is between ICON and GOF, and maybe it's best to talk about what each of us does in complements of each other.
Just sharing a little bit about ICON and what we do and what we're all about. So ICON is public-private partnership, really, what it boils down to. We are a membership organization, is a way that you could probably share that, that might help people understand. We have 12 local jurisdictions that participate in ICON, and we're working to activate 150 miles of water trails. So we are really focused on developing the infrastructure that allows folks to access the rivers, creeks, and streams, and providing them places to create wonderful memories. And as we're developing that infrastructure, there are conservation best practices baked into that, right? really intentional design to make sure that we are enhancing the natural environment or improving it, bringing it back in some places, improving safety. Underneath all of that is an economic development tool. So recreation is an incredible catalyst for economic development. Sometimes that isn't as widely known as it should be, but it's key to the economic vitality of a region and the quality of life for folks who live there. So we're really focused on developing that infrastructure, making the water trails safer, bringing folks to the trails, encouraging them to come by showing them where they can go and what they can do, really promoting events and activities on the water trails. And that's something we'll continue to get into as we activate more of the sites. We have 17 that are active right now. As of this week, we just added a new one. So we have 17 that are active right now, more than 50 planned, and that we'll continue to expand that. But we'll be bringing recreational opportunities and programming that we deliver to the community as well. So, that's kind of encapsulates ICON, that connectivity. We talk about the safety and the green infrastructure, the conservation infrastructure that is in everything that we are doing. A lot of that was developed and informed in partnership with the Great Outdoors Foundation, IDLES, Iowa DNR. So all of those partners coming together to make sure that what we're doing is really smart and improves water quality at the same time as providing fun.
Yeah, and GOF then is working up and down streams to help improve water quality, taking some of those practices that you refer to that are baked into ICON and putting them up and downstream to help accelerate the pace of water quality in those key areas. You talk a lot about, or you just talked a little bit about conservation being baked into ICON. Can you talk a little bit more about what that looks like?
Yeah. So, for example, we have an on-water maintenance and safety program. Cole Miller, our regional Associate Director of Regional Programs now, I think is what we call him. But he is out.
Is he assistant to the regional manager?
I know. It was like, we can't call this guy assistant to the regional assistant to the assistant regional manager. I know. As we went through all of those, there were a lot of jokes. So he is out there working regularly with Parks and Rec departments, Public Works departments, landowners on what impediments are in the waterways. So there are a couple ways that those can be addressed. But what he is also trying to do is taking things that we know are conservation best practices, like embedding natural material in the stream bank to be able to stabilize that. So if you have a tree that's fallen down into the river, you can chop that up, send it downstream, or you can take that with a little bit more work and you can embed that into the stream bank. And that creates a really solid way to secure that so that you're not losing that soil and seeing that go into the river. So that's one example, I think, on a smaller scale of what we're doing. Larger scale, we have 6 downtown projects. 3 of them are whitewater projects. One of them has an urban wetland that's part of the project. So that is going to do a lot of work in filtering water that is coming off of downtown in a pretty industrial and historically industrial area. Coming off of downtown before it goes into the river. Yeah. So it's just kind of as I know you all talk about all the time, there's all of these ways that we can do this work to improve water quality, and we're trying to put as many as we can into practice.
I mean, even in the planning, the Watershed Management Authority plans and the stormwater management plans were used in those original designs. I think one thing that people maybe don't get because they're thinking about the recreational piece is that even mitigating the dams is a nature-based solution to water quality. Whether it's providing fish passage and habitat, and so the fish can now go up and downstream, returning it more to its natural state, or, getting rid of those stagnant pools that happen behind a dam. Dam removal, dam mitigation is considered a nature-based solution for water quality, as is, like you said, the stream bank stabilization, oxbows, all of those things.
Native plantings. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I can't wait until some of our downtown sites come online to see all the native plantings that are intended for those spaces. It's going to be so gorgeous.
Yeah, it's really cool. It's kind of like the beauty of like really strong design. When you think about a car, it looks lovely, like it's visually appealing, aesthetically appealing, but then it has all of these functions that you hope works really well too. And I think that's how Icon is. On the surface, there's a lot to admire and enjoy, and that adds value to the community. But then functionally, it's really returning those waterways back to, their original function, which is the best way to function. That's how nature likes to work, the way that it was intended. Yeah.
Well, and I think, Kaitie, too, you're saying that Icon is kind of the sexy face of what we're doing, right? Yes. We talk a lot about the river surfing that's going to be happening as part of the Icon Downtown Whitewater projects. That stops people in their tracks when you say, a year from now, you will see people surfing on the Des Moines River. And they pause, they look at me when I say that, if they haven't heard it before, and ask, say more about that. What do you mean? And so we get to talk about this really dynamic activity that's going to be happening, and that gets people excited, right? And then it's like, okay, and then we are slipping in all these other things that we're doing as well.
It's kind of the Trojan horse of conservation.
I call it the smoothie.
It's the spinach in there. Yep. So that is a great segue into our next topic, which, water quality has been front of mind for many Central Iowa residents this year. There's a major chicken or egg debate when it comes to water quality, and you have, one school of thought that is we need to get water quality at the level that it should be before we do anything ancillary to that. So we don't need to be encouraging people to recreate when the water quality is not at the level that we want it to be. On the other hand, which I think would be more in line with the philosophy of the Great Outdoors Foundation and Icon Water Trails, is no, we need to invest in these water bodies, because that in and of itself, allowing access to recreation, will build a conservation ethic that doesn't exist if you have, desolate bodies of water that no one engages with. So talk a little bit about that perspective and how you have seen it work with Icon.
Yeah, I mean, I think part of it is let's not let perfect get in the way of good. So expecting perfection from water quality when we know that we've got a lot of work yet to do, isn't the right approach, right? We want to roll up our sleeves and get in there and do this work. We also know that Iowans like to be outside, right? We like our trails. We've seen incredible success with the paved trail network and what's happened. So being able to expand that to the water trails is something that almost seems like a natural progression. People understand the bike trails. They understand what it's meant for people getting outside, exercising, investing in their communities. We've seen small businesses pop up, all of those things. So that's kind of a natural leap, which is helpful because the philosophy of creating these spaces that people can come and enjoy, you might go there for an afternoon, but you can create a lifelong memory, right? And that's personally for me, one of the reasons that I was so attracted to this project is that my favorite memories as a kid are being taken out on the back roads up to Big Creek, to Jester with my grandparents, to watch pelicans or to play near the lake, like all of these sorts of things. They're so special to me and I hold them so dear. And it created in me a desire to see that protected and improved. And that's what we're all about, is creating that conservation mindset and that desire to see more happen, whether it's, advocating at the policy level, talking to your lawmakers and representatives on what they can do, whether it's little practices you're incorporating, whether it's making sure that you're not leaving a trace when you do go out, right? Like all of those little things and big things all add up. And that's what Icon's all about, is just making that connection between people and the water. The other piece of it, I think that's really important, is creating community around these spaces. So that example again of the bike trails, the bike community, 20 years ago, that didn't exist in the way that it does in Iowa. There is so much opportunity for social connection and community development around the water trails. And we all know we need more of that, right? Like people feel so isolated these days that more space to serve as an opportunity to create that is really important. So I could talk a lot about that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I think, Icon hosted its first Riverfest cleanup, went to, I think 11 of the 12 jurisdictions, had tremendous support throughout its regional footprint with, I think, close to 150 volunteers just in the first year. That, to me, is a demonstration of the desire for engagement with the water trails. And it was, you got to come out and pick up garbage or remove invasive species. Like, we're not talking about an easy day of volunteering. Like, these folks really, they came prepared to like roll their sleeves up and get to work. And you don't do that for something that you don't care about.
Especially when it's 92 degrees. It was like 92 degrees that day, and nobody canceled. We actually had extra people that thought they were registered, but they weren't. And we took them in anyway, right? We had like a dozen people that showed up that were so excited about it. I think that's exactly right, Kaitie. That was in a really short time frame too. We kind of put it out there and said, how many people can we get here? It was 150. And at the end of the day, they were all I think enriched by that experience. And many of them were asking us if we were going to do it again, which we said, of course we are. And we'll let you know.
Yeah, I love that.
So Icon has had more than $100 million raised to date. What is the secret of Icon's success in engaging both public and private?
Well, secret number one, if you're going to fundraise, engage Hannah and Men.
I think it was more the community.
Truly. I think that, it can be really challenging to raise that amount of money around something, especially when it was a concept, right? When a lot of this money was coming in to support this. It was a dream. It was a concept. You didn't have kind of the proof of that concept. Yes, you had it in other places, but people had to really imagine this. I think what was the key to this, one, Central Iowa, we collaborate and we rally around things that we care about, right? We have always benefited from really incredible leaders in the business community that are willing to step up and step into these projects.
Yes, definitely.
And go out and help make those asks and help encourage people because they see the vision and they can bring people alongside that vision and make them really understand what the benefit is going to be in the long term. So that has been a key. I really think that the way that this was approached is really important to talk about as well. So using private investment in that local business community coming out to help secure some of that public funding. So if you can get the big businesses in the area, the key supporters to say, we're coming together as a community. We're involved here. That will help some of those grants and other public dollars kind of flow down because they know that there's the community investment. So we have a really ideal mix of that, about 70-30 public-private ratio. But I think that was really key as well.
For sure. And you do make an interesting point. I mean, it was just a concept, right? And the first downtown, 2 of the 3 downtown projects, which are the larger investments, are under construction now. And I think even with that starting to happen, people are like, oh, wait, this is, I mean, I get calls almost weekly of someone being like, oh, I was at Single Speed or Mullets, or I was biking, and it really is happening. And I'm like, yep, it really is.
Absolutely.
And I think even too, like, the concept is hard to really wrap your head around, the magnitude of the project. And then even if you go down to the confluence of the Des Moines and Raccoon Rivers, you see it from the bridge, right? But it's not until you actually go down into that job site, which I'm not encouraging. It's an active construction site.
Wait for a little bit to do that.
Once people will actually get down in there, they will really see the size and scope and scale of what has been achieved there. It is gigantic.
Gigantic. Stephanie showed a picture at the board meeting the other day of a worker on some of the safed part of the dam. And it was massive. I mean, I see it almost, every day in picture format, but to see like the scale was amazing.
Absolutely.
And I love that too for, continuing to drive enthusiasm for the project. You think of other communities and some of those iconic images of, the Bean in Chicago or the Statue of Liberty in New York. What does it look like? Right? What's the kind of the defining vista of that community? And for Des Moines, it's the rivers that come through downtown, right? And Principal Park is down there. And now when you have that flyover shot of Des Moines, you see this massive construction site. Not very long from now, you're going to see this whitewater park as, kind of a defining vista of our community. And I'm just so excited for that and so grateful for the folks that had the vision.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've talked a lot about how Icon has changed the game, the strategy on improving water quality. And I think that obviously the specifics are going to be pretty granular to Icon itself. But if you take some of the more general best practices, they could be applied to other major challenges, whether it's education or food insecurity or, any collective challenge that a community is facing. There are probably gold nuggets that we can take away from the way that the community has rallied around Icon and rallied around water quality. What do you think some of those are, and how, what indicators of success have we seen with Icon?
Yeah. I think that's exactly right. It's the coming together. So, we mentioned at the top of this conversation, 12 communities are part of Icon Water Trails. Each community could do some of this work on their own. Yeah. But the benefit of pooling those resources, of having a unified vision, having, unified execution is so important to the success of this. From a funding perspective, from just efficiencies that are created, all of that is great. And I do think we see that and we continue to see that. So, a couple things recently, right? Was just talking with Doug Romig, who's back in the community after being away for a few years. And there is a blueprint for homelessness, right? So the community has come together around, there's all of these great nonprofits that are trying to address issues that we have for our unhoused or, housing insecure folks. But how do we kind of centralize some of that and think about that vision? Just saw in the news, one of the projects I got to work on before I came to Icon was a healthcare workforce collaborative that came kind of right after Icon in terms of concept, was a little bit shorter term, but we worked on that to try to address the healthcare worker shortage and getting more people interested in nursing and those things. And they have seen incredible outcomes by bringing community college, high school, private college, all of those together in the same room, those leaders to have a shared vision and shared strategy. And I just truly think that the opportunities are endless in that. And that's going to continue to be why Central Iowa hits above its weight class and delivers an outsized impact.
Absolutely.
So talking about, sort of those stacked benefits and community vision. So the Icon Water Trails had 250,000 seasonal visits this last year with 14 active sites at that time.
Yeah.
Which is pretty significant. How do you see that strategy playing out? How do you see that impacting how we identify as Central Iowans? What our conservation ethic is over the next decade?
Yeah, I'm just so excited to see. I'm really glad we did some of that baseline study work to understand what it looked like, in a single recreation season. So 6-month period, 250,000 visits. I think what is really valuable about that is understanding what some of those, what those activities are, right? Like when we looked at that study and we analyzed that information, we looked at who was coming to the river, where were they coming from, what did their spending look like around those visits, right? And so that information is so important, right? We learned that people who travel more than 10 miles to visit one of the Icon locations, their associated spending profile is around $86 associated with their visit. That is huge. That is incredibly significant. And so as we see easier access, more kind of dynamic sites, more programming from, Icon outfitting, that is just going to grow and grow. Icon is projected to be the second most visited whitewater attraction in the country. I always say that I think that is not true at all. I think we're going to be the first. We're projected to be right behind Bend, Oregon, but it's a heck of a lot easier to get to Des Moines than it is to get to Bend. Sorry, no offense, Bend, but we're going to outpace you.
And we have a new airport terminal
And we have
coming.
a new airport terminal coming. And we have what nobody else has, an entire regional network. So not only do we have not one, but 3 whitewater sites that are all connected once this is all done, but we will have then 50 plus other locations to visit as well. So the overall impact is so incredible. There's just opportunity for exponential growth around this.
And then you layer on the paved bike trails. I once heard a statistic that not all bikers are kayakers, but all kayakers are bikers.
Oh, yeah.
So, think about, it could be like a dual visit and you can go the High Trestle Trail and kayak the same river the next day.
Yeah, and your skater kid can drop in down at the skate park, right? And then there's, talking stats, there's that other piece of for every one person surfing in the river or playboating in the river, you've got 7 or 8 people on the shore watching them, right? And a lot of those people probably stop over at Single Speed for a burger and a beer, right? Have a great time and hopefully then want to move here. Iowa is not, growing on our own population-wise. We need to continue to attract talent to our state, and folks look at, what's available to me in my non-working hours in the community. And so I think as a workforce attraction and retention to keep the incredible businesses that we have here thriving, Icon is a really important strategy.
Yeah, most definitely. Well, we have spent a lot of the last 15 or 20 minutes talking about future forward. What are we doing looking ahead? But for our closing segment, let's whiteboard it. Our question for the two of you is, what is your favorite Icon milestone to date? And you can either draw it. Stephanie, I've got your whiteboard right here for you. You can either draw it, bonus points for that, or write it. While Hannah and Stephanie are responding to our Let's Whiteboard It question, make sure to share this episode with a friend, the favorite surfer in your life, someone who would benefit from learning more about Icon water trails. We release new episodes of the Happy Disruptors podcast every Thursday, so make sure to like and subscribe wherever you're listening, and follow along with what the Great Outdoors Foundation is doing on all major social platforms. Are you guys ready? I don't want to, I can do a little do. No, you're good.
I mean, I can't come up with one, so go ahead.
Okay.
I have many.
Here's mine. It's, so what this is kind of a cross section of the dam.
Oh yeah.
Scott Street Dam. So you have the old engineered design of the dam is like kind of this shoe, and it comes up and it creates this recirculating current. Super, super dangerous, right? Will trap you, drowning machine. This little dotted line represents the simple engineering fix of, if you square off the dam, you can prevent that recirculating current and can save lives. And so we've accomplished this down at the Scott Avenue Dam. And I am just obsessed with the fact that a simple modification can be so impactful.
Yeah.
And, bless those people back in the 20s and 30s. They didn't know that, that wasn't the best solution. But I love that we've come up with a new, better solution. And when I say simple, it's simple in theory. They have to get the water, held back in the river, and they have
you too are now a hydraulics engineer.
And you have to have the right concrete mixture, and it has to have the right strength. And if you don't do it right, then you have to tear it out. So it is incredibly complex. But I'm super proud and excited about that.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's a super efficient solution for addressing that. Yeah. I love that. And has a lot of other side benefits too. Yeah. So Hannah,
I have two on here, but my favorite part was one day I was at a social event, and someone that I kind of knew, tangentially knew, and said, "Hey, have you ever heard of this Icon water trails?" And I was like, "Oh, tell me more." Right. So that it had gone mainstream enough that it was being brought up to me as
Definitely.
Did you know about this?
Yeah.
But in addition, I have the Icon branding. That was just such a great,
huge.
First of all, it was just, who knew that branding could be so, not controversial, but so people really identify with things. And to get to that point, I just think it is one of the most iconic brands. I love the brand of Icon, everything about it and what it stands for. And then we don't do shovel groundbreakings, we do paddles. And so when we finally did the paddle groundbreaking at Scott, that was such a huge deal, because I don't think anyone really understands what had to happen to get there. Yes, there was a raising of the money, but we also had COVID. We also had a shutdown. We also, we had gone through an administrative change. There were so many different things that there were a lot of heroic actions on so many different individuals within this community to make that happen, that when we actually do the ribbon cutting, there's probably 30 people that, had it not been for their individual, going outside of their roles or going outside their comfort zones to make something happen, it wouldn't have happened. And so I think that's just a testament to Central Iowa, and then the vision of Icon Water Trails.
Yeah,
I love
absolutely.
that.
So yeah. Well, thanks so much for joining us today, Stephanie.
Thank you for the invitation.
Great to have you, and we'll see you all next time.